Hello, and welcome to this video that will help you plan a response to the short story question for the English Leaving Certificate Paper 1 Section 2, or the composition section. Students may sometimes think they cannot revise for this section of the paper as the questions are based around the text in Section 1. However, knowing how to structure and plan a short story will ensure you feel more prepared to tackle a short story task and sustain your response so that you do not go off on a tangent. So let's start with a short reminder on how each paper is set out. Paper 1 consists of two sections, comprehending and composing. Section 2 is what we will be focusing on, and you will see there that it is worth 25% or a quarter of your total English grade. This is why it is so important to prepare for this section as much as you physically can. And I have included the instructions you will come across so that you are familiar with the language in the exam. Section 2 begins, write a composition on any one of the assignments that appear in bold print below. This is the most important part, as it is telling you to follow the task that is in bold. You will see with the examples on the next slide that there is also information in regular typeface that you can use for inspiration. The remainder of the information given before the questions is as follows. Each composition carries 100 marks, and remember that is a quarter of your total English grade. The composition assignments are intended to reflect language study in the areas of information, argument, persuasion, narration, and the aesthetic use of language. So here are 4 examples of the short story questions taken from both the higher and ordinary level papers. As you can see, they make reference to one of the 3 texts from Section 1, or the comprehension section. Then the task is in bold, and this is what you must ultimately make the focus of your short story. So the first thing you must do is read the task and ensure you understand what it is asking you to do. I always recommend that you take a highlighter into the exam with you and use this here to highlight the focus in your chosen task. This acts as a quick visual reminder that you can refer back to should you feel like you are losing focus or going off on a tangent. So let's look at the first one together. In text 3, Caitlin Moran describes herself like a time bandit or spy in her local library. Write a short story suitable for publication in a collection of spy stories in which a librarian, a photograph, and a chair are central to the narrative. So here we would need to highlight spy stories, a librarian, a photograph, and a chair. I would probably also highlight the word central here too. These objects and the librarian must be the focus in this story, and as you can see, I've highlighted them there as well. So if you want to, you can pause the video here and have a go at spotting the focus for the other 3 tasks. If you feel like you need a bit more support with that, we're going to go through them together anyway on the next one. Or if you are just using this as a quick recap, feel free to continue onwards. So the second task, text 2, is based on a series of edited extracts from the novel Travelling in a Strange Land. Write a short story which captures the evolving relationship between 2 characters, one young and one old, as they travel in a strange land. Now here I've highlighted evolving relationship, as the relationship must grow in some way. Their relationship cannot remain the same. 2 characters, one young and one old, and travel in a strange land. It is worth noting here that a strange land does not need to be some made-up fantasy land. It can be a terrain or culture the people are unfamiliar with. The third task, in text 1, Melanie Murphy explains how she dislikes people who thrive on drama. Write a short story about a character whose determination to be the centre of attention has unexpected consequences. So here, determination to be the centre of attention is important, particularly determination, because this means the character must have several examples of trying or being the centre of attention. Unexpected consequences has also been highlighted. The word consequences means the outcome must be a punishment or negative in some way. Also, the character must not expect it. This would be a good opportunity to consider your language marks here and how you could include elements of foreshadowing. And the final task, text 3, is set against the backdrop of the Electric Picnic Music Festival. Write a short story in which a group of childhood friends form what becomes a world-famous band but live to regret their success. Now the focus here is the group of childhood friends form what becomes a world-famous band. The key here being a group and so several characters. I would keep this a small group so as not to confuse yourselves. The band is not immediately successful either. The band live to regret their success too, so this would possibly be the lesson learned here. Now we can imagine the plot of your story to be like a roller coaster. You always have the slow climb or build up to the climax or the most tense part before the story falls down to the resolution where it finishes. This is what you will need to learn and revise before your exam, as this will help you to plan quickly and efficiently. What we will do now is go through each section individually so you can understand its function and then end the video with an option to apply the narrative arc to other texts or films you are familiar with. Now we are not going to start with the introduction, as we would never start our plan with it either, and the reasons for this will become clear as we go through these. So after we've set our scene or introduced our character, which we're going to do last, an inciting incident occurs. This is something that is triggered by an event, a decision, or even a feeling, and this is what sets the story on its way, building towards the climax. The rise in action leads towards the climax and so begins to build tension. This is where the language aspect of your marks really comes into play, as you should include devices that build tension. An excellent example of this, if you've ever studied it or if you're familiar with Of Mice and Men, is the personification of silence. There's quite a famous scene where Candy's very, very old dog is taken out of the bunker to the yard to be shot. And the personification of the silence in the room helps to build that tension. It is a language device that builds the tension. The emphasis on the silence using these metaphors makes us as readers, it moves us as readers. We're also waiting to hear the shot, like the men in the bunker. An internal monologue is also useful here. It gives the reader a greater idea of the character's personality. And here is where we as readers would ultimately decide whether we would want the character to succeed or fail. Are we on the character's side? Is this character a good character, or do they need to learn this lesson? Here, you would plan your problem. What is the trigger, and what are some of the ways the character has tried to unsuccessfully resolve this problem? So the climax is the part of the story where something unexpected happens to the main character. This event may or may not be unexpected to the reader. This would be dependent on whether you have foreshadowed this earlier on. But it is important that the event must be unexpected to the character. They may be warned, but ultimately they will believe it would never happen to them. Here, events are slowed right down and described in detail. And I have another video that gives you a simple yet effective way to do this, which I will link in the description. Your plan here would simply be to decide what the unexpected event would be and how the character is going to respond. So after the climax, the fall in action is where events start to settle and your character begins to learn a lesson. The impact of their decisions so far come into fruition here. Life may get better for your character, or they may have to live with their poor decisions. But either way, this ends with conflict resolution. The events so far are resolved. And it is important in the resolution that all loose ends are tied up. As a reader, there is nothing more frustrating than getting to the end of a really good story and not having all of the answers. And this is why the introduction or the exposition is planned last. You can tell when a student has not planned their short story because they will include all manner of information that isn't relevant. Take the example earlier about a group of friends becoming a world famous band. I don't need to know how Emma's mum Michelle drove her to singing lessons every Saturday morning, and how Gracie's little brother Davy used to steal her drumsticks, and that Rochelle's dad John was really strict with her free time. That's too many names. We lose track of who is who, and we expect them to crop up again in the story, and ultimately they never do, simply because they're not relevant. Don't confuse your reader. Another good trick is to give your character or your setting a quirk, something that will set them apart from other characters. You need to remember in your exam that your examiner is going to be marking so many scripts of the same type of story, answering the same task. You need to make your story memorable. You need to make it different and set it apart from the others. This quirk, you shouldn't just mention it once. You should make reference to this through your story. So to take another example from earlier, a person whose determination to be the centre of attention has unexpected consequences. Think outside the box here. Why do they want to be the centre of attention? Could it be that Louis Walsh told them when they were 7 they had the voice of an angel? This could be referred to within the story and throughout. So, for example, your character saying to themselves, I'm not standing for this. Louis Walsh said I had the voice of an angel. Or the character's friends poking fun and mimicking them, which shows that clearly the character repeats this quite a lot. Finally, you must choose a narrative hook that works best for the genre and tone of your story. I have a video that explains what narrative hooks are and the different types you might find in fiction, but it is essentially the opening lines to your story, and so is quite possibly the most important part. Finally, I've added a practice task that you can refer to. You can pause this video and think about a story or a film that you know and answer the questions there. If you're having a hard time revising for your Leaving Cert and feel like nothing is sticking, use this as an example. Put on a film and see if you can recognise each part of the narrative arc using the questions there to guide you. This will help your mind to refocus during this stressful time, but it will also give you some real-time examples for you to apply your learned knowledge to. So I hope this video has been useful to you and helps you to feel more confident and prepared in approaching the composition element of the exam. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more English revision videos.